Greetings, everyone. Happy Monday night must-see TV here on Sea of Tranquility. I am Pete Pardo with the Hudson Valley Squares, Ryan Skow, Nick Franco, Steve Keeler, Chris Allo. Tonight we've got a fantastic show for you. This is a subject that has been asked for by many people, and it's kind of like a continuation on a series that I did earlier this year at the start of coronavirus, where we did a countdown of all the years in rock music since 1965, and I picked a favorite album from every single year up to 2019. Well, I've asked the crew here to take a look back in music history and pick one year, probably their favorite year out of all of them, and to give us 5 of their favorite releases from that year. Not an easy task, I know. I think the easy part of this is picking the year. The hard part is picking 5 and trying to limit it to 5. I know it was hard for me. So I'm going to have Ryan kick us off with his choice of favorite year.
Okay, so obviously, like Pete said, every year has been great in metal if you know where to dig, or rock too. But I picked the year 2000. Why did I do that? Because that was the year I graduated high school. So obviously you might say, I'm sure there'll be some comments, wasn't the best year overall, but there were some albums that year that were extremely significant to me. So I'm going to start with this one, Brave New World. And I'm picking that because this was the first album that Iron Maiden released with Bruce Dickinson after I got into the band. When I first got into them, by proxy of my age, Blaze was their singer, and first time I saw them was with Blaze. But when this came out, and this is I love this album. This is my favorite of all the reunion albums. This was a big deal for me at the time. I still love it. I listen to it all the time. I actually remember my senior year of high school, I skipped school, and like 8 of us packed into my old 1970 Pontiac to drive up to the store. Sorry, I wasn't your store at the time, Steve. I don't think I knew you then. To buy this album when it came out. I think it was like April or May of that year. So I'm going with this. Still, I was probably into them for about 3 or 4 years at that point. I think I heard them when I was like 14 or so, but this was a very, very impactful album for me, made a big difference. And I do love it a lot, as you can see by the flag I have on all of these videos.
Awesome. Oh, yeah, you got the flag up there.
You're correct, Steve. It is the flag.
I wore that CD, that's when CDs were in the car all the time, and I wore that CD out playing that when it came out.
I think it's great. I like every song on it. I think it's a great album. Is it better than the first 7 Iron Maiden albums? No. I think the first 7 are my favorite 7. But if I had to pick the 8th one beyond that, and they're probably my favorite band, so it doesn't. The 8th album, the 8th best is still great. It probably would be Brave New World.
It blows my mind that record is. I think Pete and I talked about it not that long ago. 20 years old. I'm like, that's a phenomenal record. Like you said, the best of the reunion albums. But I'm like, Jesus, how is it 20 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like yesterday I was at the Garden watching that show, and
right. That was with that was the tour with Halford and Queensryche.
Halford and Queensryche. Yep, I saw that in PA. I remember that was the first time I saw them with Bruce. Was with in that PA show.
I was at that show.
I know. I don't think I knew you then.
The Wilkes-Barre show.
Yeah, I didn't meet you until the following year for some reason. I don't remember why.
You were at the same show. You didn't know me, probably. Yeah. I was at that show. Yeah. Rob Halford actually waved to us. We were standing by backstage, and I was one of my own old employees, and he kind of looked over, and he kind of came over and kind of waved and said hello. Rob did.
Nice.
All right, so Ryan gave his first pick from his year 2000. So we'll circle back to everybody to give their successive picks. So Steve, why don't you give us your year and your first pick from that year?
All right, so why did I pick this year? When I was first asked about this, or messaged by Pete earlier in the week what we were doing, first I thought of like mid 80s immediately, or even like something like Skow, the 2000s, with like the progression of how metal changed and got way a lot better in some ways. And in a big way. But I picked 1970. Why 1970? It was a year when heavy metal was pretty much launched. It was a year from the era when hard rock bands stood toe to toe with everything else in the Billboard 100. And you had Hendrix still going, the Doors were still around, still putting out iconic records. You had Outstanding Morrison Hotel, and they put out the Absolutely Live that year. And of course, Black Sabbath put out 2 albums that year. They put out the initial self-titled and Paranoid. And it, that was the footprint of heavy metal was
Yes,
so
it
out
was.
of the 1970. Along with like ELP being launched, their first album came out, and was like a Palmer. Jethro Tull was on Benefit. Santana,
First dry heat valve.
Deep Purple and Rock. Of course, that was launched with some guy named Ian Gillan. First album of them. So at 70, it was a pretty historic year. And even the Grateful Dead put out 2 albums, and they were 2 of their most popular. So 70 was just a year for rock and the birth of metal. And I guess my number 5 is going to be a tie. I don't care. You're going to yell at me. It's going to be Deep Purple and Rock, and it's going to be Led Zeppelin 3. I think that's what I'm going to go from that year. I mean, I got 10 albums numbered. I wasn't sure if I could sneak some in. I might have a couple honorable mentions at the end if we allow it.
Rules 5, Steve.
There's some honorable mentions when Brian Slagle was on.
Oh.
I don't think anybody's going to worry that we have more than 5. So
Yeah, okay,
this is
cool.
fine. All right, cool. Steve, great choice of the year. I'm actually happy you chose that because now I'm not the guy who chose the oldest year here. So, Nick, what do you
It doesn't
got?
look much older than that for rock.
You got me by a year. I just gave it away.
So I decided to go with 1988. For me, I was 12 in 1988, and it was one of the years that I kind of launched myself into heavy metal. But many of the albums that I'm mentioning, I wasn't into at that moment that they came out. But I am going to go with my first one here on April 11th, 1988. Iron Maiden released Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. And yeah, here's the beautiful vinyl, one of the best covers of all time.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and the as Ryan alluded to before, the classic era of Iron Maiden is said to have pretty much agreed to have concluded with this release. That this maybe is the last super great album of their glory years that they put out. Even though, like Ryan, I am and Pete, and I think all of you, very big fan of what they've done since Bruce came back. Without a doubt, I love it. I hate when people crap on Iron Maiden for not being good after Bruce came back. That's a bunch of bullshit. Anyway, this album has always blown me away. Every single aspect of it. There isn't a bad moment on it. And it's out of a great year of 1988. This is probably my favorite album. Well, might be my second favorite album of 1988, but it is certainly one of my favorite Iron Maiden albums. And I wish I was old enough to have seen them tour on that tour, but I wasn't.
It's my favorite album in 1988. Yeah, I'd say it's my number 1 for that year.
I have one more that might get the edge, but that's pretty much godlike album to me.
So
I had
who-
second row.
I'm sorry. Now we're talking over a little bit. I'll raise my hand when I want to answer a question. All right, ready for one for me? Who was at the show at the Civic Center in this room right now that saw the Seventh Son tour? Chris, you must have been.
I didn't catch him at the Civic Center, but I had second row. I had a ticket hookup in '88. I used to give my guy beer and porn, and I had second row center for Maiden and Ace Frehley on the Seventh Son tour at the Metal. Got Dave Murray's wristband. I still have it.
Oh, so cool.
And what'd you say? I was at the Garden?
That was at the Meadowland.
Oh, Meadowlands. Okay, yeah. I wish I would have went to the Meadowland, showed them a memorable part. I mean, of course, it was an amazing concert at the Civic Center, but Pete, I remember that it was so hot in there. It had to be 100-some degrees in there. It was the hottest thing I've ever been in. And it started to condensation from the ceiling.
If you guys, that was a common occurrence at the Mid-Hudson Civic Center. But if I remember right, the reason I didn't go to the Civic Center show, I had tickets for somebody else. It might have been Kiss, maybe.
Oh,
I can't remember now. But did they do all the pyro in the Civic Center?
I don't remember that part. I just remember the heat, and I remember going upstairs because I remember the bathrooms upstairs. You gotta go up the stairs all the time, and everybody that's taking their T-shirts off and putting them in the sink and putting them back on. That's how hot.
Wow.
I think the only show that Steve there that was hotter than that one was that Gigantor show in like
Yes.
2006 or whatever.
fuck.
I don't know. I must have been in better shape then because I didn't notice it being as
Oh,
hot as
man,
that
that
one.
was
The other one it was just crazy.
I thought I was gonna die. It was so hot, that gigantic.
It was hot and it was so excruciatingly loud. I mean, I
That's
was miserable during that entire performance.
It was
That was
raining.
all those
Megadeth
bands. The
and,
bands were great.
Dream Theater, right?
Ugh.
Yeah, they played.
Yeah.
It was the condensation was causing it to rain inside the venue. It was
Yeah.
so fucking hot.
It was awful.
Legendary.
We didn't stay to the end, Skow. You were with me at that, I think.
Oh, I was there with you. I went with you. I drove you.
Yeah, you did. Well, you didn't stay for the end. We stayed for a couple songs at Megadeth, and you were like, "That's enough. We just gotta leave."
Yeah, they sucked though. I didn't like that Megadeth stuff.
Dream
Anyway,
Theater was on forever too before, so you were kind of lulled into sleep a little bit because it's very relaxing. You know?
All right, Chris, you're up. What do you got?
All right, my year, this was an easy pick for me, was 1981. For me, as a kid, I was 10 years old. I moved. I was in a new area or new neighborhood rather, and I was the 10-year-old fat kid that was into pro wrestling and horror movies and comic books. But at 10 years old, that was like baby shit. Like all the kids were either into sports or rock and roll, and I was not getting into sports. So by default, I had to get into rock and roll, and so that was the start. And so 1981 was an awesome year. I didn't, get everything in 1981 because, you didn't. It's not like it was today, as you guys know. We talk about, you didn't have internet and shit like that, but that was the start for me. And my number 5 pick to tie in with the other guys, Iron Maiden Killers. I don't know what more needs to be said. Piano's last record with the band, just a 5-star classic. And man,
perfect.
Looking at my list of like 17 albums from 1981, holy shit! I would argue this could be the greatest year in the history of heavy metal, but that's another debate. But that's my pick for number 5. Which, holy shit, what a year! If Killers is number 5, what the hell kind of year was 1981?
Pretty good.
Exactly. That's kind of like the same thing with my year here. So Steve, I went with 1971, as I kind of divulged already, and it's just amazing the magnitude of albums that came out in that year. And again, it's not like a lot of these albums are necessarily my favorite from these bands, but it's the overall breadth of greatness in this year that's just out of control. And I don't even know how to rank them here. I'm just going to pull one out of the stack here. So Aqualung by Jethro Tull is one of them, right? And more to come. But yeah, I mean, 1971 is, like Steve mentioned before, you have kind of the birth of this thing called heavy metal. Okay, you've got the birth of this thing called progressive rock. You got amazing albums by guys like Elton John and Rod Stewart and Humble Pie and Deep Purple, yes, Genesis. I mean, Zeppelin, the Stones, just like landmark albums, like all over the place from like every major band who would become huge in the 70s. And it's just like, I don't know. I mean, like Steve, I was looking at 70 also. I was looking at 72 and 73. I mean, 77 was great. It's ridiculous. But for me, I think that like 1971, Grand Funk Railroad, I mean, all these great bands that I just adore. Uriah Heep had 2 albums that year. Tough to beat. So yeah, so 1971 is it for me. My number 5 pick is Aqualung. And back to Ryan.
All right, so I will make this promise. If anybody watching has or knows this band, I will buy you a fucking beer, because I bet nobody does. But this album has real sentimental value to me, which I'll tell you about. This Canadian band from Toronto, and this is as obscure as it gets. The band is Megiddo, and the album is The Devil and the Whore. And they only printed, let's see,
They only got 5 of them.
333 copies of it. 333 copies. So there's not a lot of them worldwide for a single out. So the deal with this album was it's like very raw, old school, Bathory, Sodom, Hellhammer kind of black metal. Great album. I loved it. Bought it when it came out. Never played a show. Never played shows for years and years. In 2013, my friend Anik from Canada, and she put on a festival called Wings of Metal, and the first band she announced was Megiddo. After 13 years, they're going to play their first ever show. So I'm like, well, fuck it, I'm going to Montreal. So what ended up happening was I ended up going up to Montreal for this festival, and it ended up being a great fest. Satan played that first one. Manila Road played that first festival, and they played like a 2.5-hour set, which was, to this date, I see Manila Road probably like 12 times, the craziest I've ever seen. On subsequent fests, Angel Witch played, Holocaust played. She did really good business getting these new wave bands to come over. But the first band that got me up there was these guys. And because of that, because of this band and that album, and the adventures to follow, I ended up meeting tons of friends up there, tons of people. I've been to Montreal a million times since. I've had great times, and it just like I kind of like trace all that back to this one band because of that, it kind of like blossomed into this big, all these people I know up in Canada now. So it's just like one of the, and I love the fuck out of the album. Don't get me wrong, but it's like kind of how an album can kind of lead you to, like, oh, I'm gonna go see them. Oh, now I know all these people up here. Oh, I'm going back. She ended up doing 4 iterations of this Wings of Metal Fest. It was like a really 2 or 3 day long, like very intimate affair, like maybe 300 or 400 people.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, it was a festival, but like more of like an intimate deal. But the bands were great. Like to see like the last one she ever did in 2017, the final band to play hometown show was Voivod, and they played a set of old school shit. Korgel the
It's been
Exterminator.
awesome.
It was fucking insane. It was the place was a madhouse. Just like shit like that. And I never would have gone up there or known about it if I didn't commit myself to go see them when they first played. And they were amazing too. When they played that one show, it was one of only 2 gigs they ever played in their existence before they kind of like fucked off again. But that's my choice.
Well, I guess I'm not getting a beer because I've never heard of them before.
I don't think anybody had it. They only printed 333 copies. Very, very obscure. Great album. Like if you like old Sodom, old Bathory, Hellhammer, like that kind of like primitive black metal, it's one of the best. But yeah, very, very obscure band. But for that reason, that's why I went with them.
That's cool.
All right, Steve, back to 1970.
We went in a time capsule there. We went from some black metal and some Skow Unknown to Emerson, Lake and Palmer's self-titled, The Barbarians,
Good
The Three
choice.
Fates, Take a Pebble, Knife Edge. Just a great album. One of my favorites. And that's my number 4. I mean, I don't know how I'm going to only do 5. I got a lot, too many good ones down. The one that's right next to it is also a heavy hitter. It's not even in the top 5. There's a lot of heavy hitters that aren't in the top 5.
1970 was a great year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great debut. That's one of the all-time best debuts.
Oh, such a
Really
great album too.
amazing. Yeah,
Up
really.
there with Carcass and Trilogy, I think. Like really good.
Yeah.
They
All right,
don't. They're pretty good for quite a long time after this album. Yes. All righty.
Mr. Franco, what do you got?
Okay, so I'm naming mine in the chronology of when they came out in that year because I didn't know if we were supposed to do like favorite to not least favorite to favorite, but it was a hell of a spring in 1988 because April 11th you got Seventh Son, and on May the 3rd, 1988, you got this band's pinnacle of their career. This is
Wow.
Queensryche, Operation Mindcrime. This album stands as there are many days where I would say that this is my favorite album ever of anything. Ever, even though Iron Maiden is my favorite band overall, Operation Mindcrime may be my favorite album in my life. And that's when it came out. And I had gotten into them via my brother, who's 8 years my senior. And he, I used to just raid his room for everything. And he got me into Queensryche. And Operation Mindcrime, in addition to being, one of the coolest concept albums ever created with, just such a wonderful narrative running through it. I think it was Queensryche. I think it's not a stretch to say that it was Queensryche's pinnacle. And in a way, 1988, it's kind of like the whole initial surge of progressive power metal that really was big in the 80s kind of started to ebb after this. I think like a lot of the greats had to switch styles or just not really, explore other things that, it maybe the whole thing was starting to collapse. And Seventh Son and Operation Mindcrime might stand as like the pinnacle of that power metal, decade basically. So Operation Mindcrime, I'm sure some of you, I hope you're going to tell me now that you got to see that original tour. If you did, please say it. I'd like to hear about it because again, I was
Me.
small. But go ahead.
And one of the lyrics from that song still ebbs in my brain this whole year about tell the media to tell us the truth was the truth. It was way before 2020, and Jeff was talking about.
Yes, and you know what, Steve, that's a great point, because as much as the album does sound very 80s, with the way he sings and everything, but
It's excellent.
the themes on here are timeless. Like their little story about the government, the media, and the corporate lies and blah blah blah. Timeless. Like
2020.
yeah, well, definitely. But one of my favorite, maybe my favorite album ever. But yeah.
Nick, you bring up a good point about how that album was really influential on a lot of like progressive and power metal stuff that came after it. Just think for a second how many power metal bands and progressive metal bands have done these big, epic, overblown concept albums since. I mean, overblown in a good way, but I mean, that was never really happening until that album.
Yeah.
Now you've got especially European bands doing this kind of stuff all the time. I mean, like concept albums are like the norm now for those type of bands.
Right.
Probably all because of that.
Yeah. Oh, what an album. Just
Excellent.
Classic lineup, DeGarmo, just friggin'.
I mean, King Diamond did a few concept albums, a little just around that time period or just before.
True.
Yeah,
That's all he does.
Abigail was 86, I think, right? Yeah.
87, right? I think Fatal Portrait.
Yeah,
Fatal
might
Portrait.
be.
Yeah.
5.
Either 86 or 87, but yeah.
I saw the Abigail tour. I think that was 87.
Yeah, I saw it too. I saw that at Saratoga Winters.
But even so, King Diamond did it. It was only like 2 years before, and it's hard to think of any other bands. That
Yeah, but it's a good point, though.
Yeah, great record. And Nick, I saw Queensryche on that tour. It was Operation Mindcrime tour. They opened for Metallica, their first arena tour on the Justice for All tour.
Wow.
I must have saw that too.
Yeah, that was that was like March 1st, 1989 at the Meadowlands.
Yeah,
then they came back and did that Operation Mindcrime Live, where they were the headliner, if you remember.
That was the next album. That was for Empire. That was 2 years later. That was 1990.
But they performed the whole Operation Mindcrime because they were
correct. It was the Empire tour, but they played all of the Mindcrime record, which was really strange.
Yeah,
but it worked. Drew a lot of people.
It worked. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Chris, what's your next pick for?
Okay, my next pick, great record. Sounds like crap, but warts and all, I love it. Lots of other people do, and man, talk about an influential record. 1981's "Welcome to Hell" by Venom. I mean, I fucking love Venom. Those first 3 records, I'll take to my grave as 3 of the best records of all time. And I mean, without 1981's "Welcome to Hell," the big 4, I guess, would just be Anthrax.
It wouldn't exist. None of them would exist.
Right. Maybe Anthrax, because they were not Venom fans, but Metallica, Megadeth, and Slayer were all huge Venom fans, and all of those guys were photographed numerous times wearing, the "Welcome to Hell" T-shirt. So that's my pick. Just a killer record. I mean, In League with Satan, "Live Like an Angel, Die Like a Devil," the title track, "Witching Hour." I mean, holy shit, what a record. Yeah, it sounds like crap.
And quite frankly, would you have even had Voivod or Celtic Frost if it wasn't for that?
For sure. Great point. Tons of other bands as well. So yeah, hugely influential album, and that's my pick.
Cool.
One of the best albums ever.
Yeah.
All right, back to 71. I mean, Jesus, like I said, I got so many of them here, but I'll just throw one out. How about Who's Next by The Who?
Excellent.
Top to bottom. I mean, is this like, not like Desert Island Disc for most like rock fans of the 70s? And I mean, every song is just a classic on here. Bob O'Reilly, Bargain, Loving for Keeping, My Wife, The Song Is Over, Getting in Tune, Going Mobile, Behind Blue Eyes, and Won't Get Fooled Again. And that's not counting all the other session stuff that they did for the whole Lighthouse thing, or Lifehouse thing. You got Pure and Easy, and what else? Young Man Blues, and Bargain, and Bargain I already mentioned, Water, Naked Eye. I mean, all these great songs that were done at that session. It's probably The Who's grand opus. You could talk about Tommy, you could talk about Quadrophenia, but I'd
Yeah.
argue that
That's my favorite one. That's my favorite.
yeah, I
album.
mean, this is just, this is like an iconic album. And again,
Right
from
on.
1971, the hits just keep on coming. So back to you, Ryan.
All right, I'm gonna do an awkward segue here. So you mentioned the Who song on that album, great song, Behind Blue Eyes, 2000. What terrible band covered it? Limp Bizkit. And
Oh.
unfortunately, that's not who I'm going with though. So
I hope not.
No, Steve, shut up. The issue at the time was the first band that got me into metal, like really big into metal, was Slayer. I heard Slayer when I forget how old I was, but it just blew my fucking head open. And so that was what I was into, like really dark, evil, like satanic, fast, evil metal. And most of the music back then sucked ass. So I was always looking for bands like, I want something that's more like intense. Like, it doesn't have to sound like Slayer, but I just like that vibe. And in the end of the 90s, the 2000s, when I was like growing up, there was very little of that. There was a lot of Korn, Limp Bizkit, Slipknot. I hate all that crap. I apologize if the viewers do. More power to you. So I was looking for bands like that, and some people might have heard of this. Not as obscure as the last choice, although not Iron Maiden. There's a great Swedish band who professed that the newest band they ever liked was Venom, and they've seen the two main guys in this band. I think have seen Iron Maiden collectively somewhere between 300 and 400 times. They're like infamous in Sweden for having the number of times they've seen Iron Maiden. And that band is Niflheim, Servants of Darkness. And both the main guys in the band are two brothers. They're like identical twins, no hair, skullets, infamous Iron Maiden fucking fanatics. But the sound, it's like it's like old Venom, old Slayer with like Iron Maiden like melodies almost. It's raw and intense. It's like hitting the head over and over again with a brick and a beer bottle on the other side. Great fucking band. Just awesome, kind of old school, evil black metal thrash kind of stuff.
Very scary.
It's their best album too. I really loved the hell out of it. I've listened to this conservatively. Probably the craziest show back when we had shows I ever saw. I've seen a couple hundred shows at St. Vitus Bar in Brooklyn. 2015, Niflheim played there, and the next day I was up against the stage going crazy, pounding beers in my forehead. The next day, both of my knees down, were purple because I was getting bathed in the stage so much. I actually woke up and they were purple, like I was like in some like CIA or KGB like interrogation, and they beat the fuck out of me. That's how crazy it was. People were going insane. Like I obviously didn't see Slayer in the 80s, but it's kind of how it felt like, or how I imagine it would be, just absolute fucking chaos. Because shows today, I don't think as a whole are is crazy. That's my impression of it. But that show, woof, fucking Christ, I couldn't walk right for like a week. I was like hobbling around, looking like an idiot. But that's my number 3 choice here. The Great Niflheim.
Very cool. All right, Steve, back to you.
Number 3 is a 10-way tie. I didn't tell you that. Number 3, I'm going with The Doors with Morrison Hotel.
Good choice.
I just love. That's one of my favorite bands over the years is The Doors. I was into them in the 70s, really heavy. I discovered them in the late 70s and grabbed all the albums. I knew that's the songs on radio, and I was really into The Doors, and I find them soothing. It's one of my bands I go back to listen to a lot, and that's just a strong record of Waiting for the Sun. I like Queen of the Highway, Maggie McGill, other than the hits, of course, Roadhouse Blues and whatnot.
So Steve and I did a top 10 songs of the Doors show last year. And Steve, I don't know if you remember how many like honorable mentions we talked about.
A couple hundred, probably.
It's like every single Doors song is great.
It was every album, we just went through every song on the record.
Exactly, because they never did a bad song. I mean, it's just incredible. They had so many radio hits.
They had no duds.
So many. Crazy.
Roadhouse Blues has been stuck in my head, like on and off, like since I could remember, like since I was in short pants.
Sure.
The song is just always looping in my head.
And not the Deep Purple version?
No, it's the Doors version.
Poor Ian with that one. I don't know what they did with that one.
I'm still going to hear that.
I love the new Deep Purple. I'm way off topic. I've been listening to that a lot. I brought the vinyl home the other day.
It's quite good.
It is good.
All right, Nick, back to you.
Oh,
1988.
So 1988. So we're going to go back to Sweden, where Ryan was.
We didn't.
Yeah, as it was kind of the ending era of top power metal releases that sort of around that time. It was the advent of, you know, black metal, pagan,
Yeah, I know
Viking
it's
black metal and stuff like that. Yeah, Ryan knows.
I know
And
it's coming.
a band from Sweden, really, it was kind of really just one man named Korthon. He had been going along pretty strong, and he made an album called Blood, Fire, Death.
Fuck yes, he did.
Yes, he did. Blood, Fire, Death came out on October 8th, 1988. And this album takes all of the raw fire and you know, screeching vocals and all that kind of stuff, but mixes it with a much more epic, adventurous style. There are still very, very fast, storming, like very, very like Sodom-esque type fast songs like Pace Till Death and Holocaust, but they did a song called A Fine Day to Die, which had like the slow building, you know, adventurous Viking style music to it. And bands like Enslaved can, you know, basically almost lay their careers at being influenced by this band Bathory, which influenced a lot of bands. And even though it had somewhat raw production, it isn't nearly as raw as some people might think when they see the Bathory logo. I think a lot of fans into more progressive and you know, not mainstream, but like I don't think this is as inaccessible record, and people
It's very listenable.
people who are looking for something that they might have missed back in the day. Bathory truly embodies all of that epic, you know, really robust vocal. It's not just death vocals, you know, there's a lot of like you know, what would you say, like not gang vocals, but I don't know, it just really has a lot more to offer than just, you know, black metal. And but it was really just a touchstone of this genre right here. So just unbelievable, what a year that, you know, such opuses that I mentioned came out, and now you have this for the European Viking metal. Just an incredible monument of sound.
Love that album. Love it.
Choice.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Allo, what you got?
All right, you know, I became a big Black Sabbath fan. Sabbath's my favorite band of all time, but I got to give props to you know, to where it's due. 1981, absolutely my all-time favorite Ozzy solo record. 1981's Diary of a Madman. I mean, I think it's far better than Blizzard of Oz, and I love Blizzard of Oz, but when the hit single "Flying High Again" is the worst song on the record, that's a pretty good record. I mean, I don't think I have to go over the whole record, but it's also got my favorite Ozzy solo track, "Diary of a Madman," which of course, you know, put together by the late great Randy Rhoads. I mean, I don't know what needs to be said, but man, that's a fucking great record. I still listen to it. I wish there was more video footage of Randy on that tour. That's definitely, and this has been brought up, Pete, time machine tours or time machine shows. It's not my number one, but yeah, certainly seeing Ozzy with Randy on the Diary of a Madman would be up there for a time machine show for myself.
Well, I know Mr. Keeler and I were both at that Mid-Hudson Civic Center show with Motorhead back in 1981.
Yeah, we talked about that before. That was a double-header concert day because there was a concert at SUNY New Paltz used to have this big rock fest every spring, and everybody would show up with coolers of beer, and it was just a grand time. And I think Frank Marino and Mahogany Rush were there that day, or Frank Marino was there, Stevie Ray Vaughan, somebody was. We went over that lineup before.
Yeah.
The Wailers, and I think Joan Jett maybe was there.
Joan Jett was there in '84. That's when I went there. Yeah. Wow. Joan Jett was there, but yeah, they had some great concerts out there in the field.
Yeah, it was a big mixture. We'd go, and that was the same day. I remember we were drinking beers, pounding beers all day there, and then somebody drove over to the Civic Center, which wasn't too far, and Motorhead came on and blew your clothes off, almost blew your head off, because you never seen anything like that in the world. Never. And you were standing on top of those horrible plastic chairs watching Motorhead, and it was just like holy shit, what is this? Right? And then the same thing, man. Andy came on, and that T-shirt ruled because I had the concert shirt from there, had the United States on the back, and had the crosses, which Ozzy's recreated a couple of times on the tour, and a lot of bands have copied off of that one.
Crazy evening. All right, back to 71. my number 3, I guess, right? Or yeah, whatever whatever we're up to.
Yes,
I'm gonna go
3.
with Sticky Fingers by the Stones. You know, easily my favorite Stones album. So many great songs on here. You know, Brown Sugar and Wild Horses, and you got the incredible Can't You Hear Me Knocking, which is really the song that kind of got me into the Stones. You know, Bitch is great. I love Sway is one of my favorite Rolling Stones songs of all time.
Great
It's
album.
underrated. You know, Dead Flowers is killer. Moonlight Mile, Sister Morphine, I Got the Blues. I mean, top to bottom, just absolutely incredible, and a pretty clever album cover, I think, too. So
Got a zipper on it.
yeah. All right.
I tell you, like I've got notes from 71 because when I first sat down, I put down 70, 71, and I gathered some albums for each and found out, you know, the 2 Black Sabbath albums. So I hopped to 70, but I'm looking at my list of 71, and I don't know how you're going to fit in all these into the next 2. There's a lot I can tell. I know that you like that are on this list.
Well, I got 2. I got 2 more heavy hitters coming up, and then I got 3 more sitting on the side that I'm like, oh, how can I?
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking at the list too.
That's the challenge of doing this. So, all right,
sure.
Ryan, back to you.
All right. So when I started, I said, you know, when I first get into music around time 2000, Maiden came back and kicked ass. But like I said, the first band that really got me into metal was Slayer, and fortunately, that was not the best time to get into Slayer. I guess the last really good album for me is Divine Intervention, which was 1994. And in my opinion, you know, and if anybody disagrees, feel free to comment. I don't think they ever released a good album after that. You know, 1998, Die Boss and Musica, nope. 2001, God Hates Us All, nope. So even though they were the band that kind of like brought me into the fold, and I love the early stuff, you know, Hell Awaits, you know, Rain and Blood, Show No Mercy. Unfortunately, like my age, I just happened to coincide with them kind of getting shitty. So I was looking for other bands, like I said, and the band that took the mantle for me for like, you know, basically the best, and to this day, like probably my favorite band in the style ever, is from Australia, Melbourne, Australia, since relocated, is Destroyer 666.
We're getting heavy now.
2000 album Phoenix Rising. This is the reissue of it because I love this cover. And because of this band, I have traveled to Europe twice, you know, mostly to see them. You know, of course, did other stuff, had adventures. But these guys are like the ultimate mix of like Hell Awaits, like Show No Mercy, early Slayer. Like Nick just showed, like, you know, Blood, Fire, Death, like very epic, you know, Bathory, kind of like Fist in the Sky, early classic black metal, early heavy metal. Like these guys just take all that great stuff, smash it all together. They don't really sound like anybody else. They're very unique sounding, you know. So if you hear one of their albums or a couple of their albums, you know, they don't sound like a, you know, homage to like older days, but it's definitely like pulled from that era. You know, it's like the best of, you know, the best of like the core, like what makes classic heavy metal really good is like really represented. And this was their second full length, and every song on, I could sing every song on the sound from heart, you know, and I have when I've seen it.
Yeah, we could come back on later and Skow will sing all the songs for us.
I'll sing it for you in private. But yeah, this album, it's not even my favorite album. Their first album from '97, Unchained the Wolves, is probably my favorite full length from them. But this is a perfect album for me. I've listened to it. I wore out the first CD I bought, just totally wore it out to where it's like, you know, some Tupperware bin somewhere, like not even usable. So I have to repurchase it a couple times. But after Maiden, probably my second favorite band in the world, like Maiden, Voivod, like that little top 5 that like swaps around. Like any real music fanatic, you know, you're always like swapping what your favorite stuff is. Those guys are definitely top running for me with that one. And that's the first album I really got into them because I heard it, I think when I was, I heard it that year. So I was 18 when I got into that. So
I've seen them twice, both with Ryan. I've seen them twice, and Destroyer destroys every time. They are one of the best extreme bands out there because they do have that very, the guitar melodies are always there no matter how heavy they are, and that just makes it just but they're ferocious. They don't fuck around.
I've seen them 16 times now.
16.
I've seen them once. I saw them at the Gramercy a couple of years ago. I think they were with Watain and somebody else, and that was brutal. Like I was finally got to see them, and the energy they had on stage is everything that Skow said. They're like Motorhead were in the '80s, sort of that imagery, and it's metal. I mean, it's as metal as you can get.
You know what? Right after I could tell this right after Lemmy died. I know they got together, and it's like we want to do a little something for Lemmy, and they started working a cover of Iron Fist into every show, and they keep doing it. And they kicked
That, I guess that was one of the connections that stayed in my brain. They killed that night.
they did.
Amazing.
It was a great night. It was a great night at the Gramercy. Gramercy is like my favorite place to go because I'm old and I can sit down and I can go up and on the ledge, you're up in the seats and check out the band. So I love that place.
And I can yell to you and say, "Hey, Steve, King in the North." There he is.
I love it when you yell, King of the Will you put me on the ballot? Will you put me on the ballot for tomorrow? I think I'm going to run.
I'm going to write you in.
I'm going to run. I'm going to make my announcement at midnight. I'm going to run for president.
This is Steve Keeler, and I approve this message.
Actually, it's between Skow and I got to figure out who else is going to run for vice president. I'll have to think of somebody else. Maybe Ozzy Osbourne will.
He needs something to do.
Yeah,
He does.
I bet you Ozzy'd win too.
He probably would. I'd vote for Ozzy.
Everyone would.
he won't last long anyway. So
Yeah.
What do you think about
We're
it?
at number 2.
Number 2, Steve. What do you got?
Is it for me? Now this is pretty hard to do. There's 2 Black Sabbath albums. I guess I kind of figure out one of them was going to be number 1. I'm going with the first album for number 2, and I mean it's close as it gets. So I got one's got to be 2. So it's self-titled, which started all with a self-titled song and Wicked World, and it's just a great album. You know, you know, everything on here is 50th anniversary now. So we're talking about 20 years for that album we were talking about earlier. These are 50 years old now, all these albums.
right.
So it's been like 50 years of heavy metal, and it should have been a big concert or something, or celebration, pretty much. I mean, you can't really, I mean, some people can make the argument that, like, oh, the band that does, now I'm brain fading, but the band, Blue Cheer started the metal thing, but I think Sabbath really put the footprint in.
I go with Sabbath. I got to go with you on that. I think it's Sabbath.
But some people do. Well, you know, there was some other stuff before. But
I mean,
yeah,
you could say Blue Cheer, but you'd be wrong.
yeah,
You'd be wrong.
You'd be wrong. You know, Cream even had some pretty heavy stuff going on just before then. So
You know what? Sabbath were fucking evil, and those other bands, those are great bands. They were not. They were
had
not
the
like
heavy
evil
vibe,
kind
but
of
they
band.
weren't the evil part. Yeah, exactly.
Sabbath, you have church bells, you have rain, you have the figure standing in front of that water mill
Thunder.
I'm going to go to next time I'm in England. That's fucking evil, and it still resonates. So 50 years later.
It was like a Dracula movie. It was named after Boris Karloff. They were named after Boris Karloff.
It makes all the difference.
Yep. All right, cool. Nick, what do you got?
So, as 1988 was this touchstone for Viking black metal and the apex of power metal, it was also, now I'm really not a big punk rock guy. And in fact, I only dip my toes in there once in a while, but the band that will, make me say I dip my toes in punk rock is Bad Religion. And in 1988, they released their 3rd album called Suffer. And for them personally, it was a return to form. I guess they had done some experimental stuff before that. So the album Suffer is very, very much appreciated within the punk rock world. In fact, I was looking it up a little bit before this, and in Soundy magazine in Finland, they voted it one of the top 50 albums of all time, which I thought was interesting. The album is the length of this album is 25 minutes and 50 seconds, and yet it is one of the most important pieces of music that I've ever listened to in my life. It certainly helped me make sense of the world in 10th grade. They have unbelievable singing arrangements. They can make a 1:50 song just be so memorable. And, there isn't a wasted second on this album, Suffer. And, it's an album that I think a lot of metal and rock guys were really into, because it has a lot of guitar solos and it has a lot of, metallic leanings, even though it is firmly a punk album. But Suffer is just one of the greatest, just quick blasts of this type of music that you're ever going to hear. And it was one of the earliest, forms that music took in terms of the fullness of it. There was some more raw hardcore and punk way before that, but Discharge. But it's not as chaotic as Discharge, but it's not as like clean and poppy and bubblegummy as like Blink-182, which is garbage. But they definitely influenced all that shit. So I guess we can't, You gotta be mad at them for that. But honestly, one of my most important albums to me in my life. As much as I'm into metal and everything, this album just absolutely rules. And I've seen them perform many songs from it. They're incredible. Bad Religion.
I sold a lot of that when it came out in the store. Bad Religion were huge around that time. I sold a lot. I sold shirts and CDs and whatever else. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a good album. I mean, I'm not a punk guy either, but they were polished enough for me to like them. I like that album a lot. I've seen them before. They're a great live performance too.
Oh yeah, I've listened to it so much in high school that like I know every sound on it, and I listen to it to this day. That's the only thing I want to hear. I throw it on, and in the length of a sitcom, it's over. It's really good.
Yeah. It is. It's fast.
All right, back to 81, Chris.
This record came out in 81. Obviously, I didn't get it till like 86, and I was pissed at myself for not getting into them sooner because I thought they were a super uncool band because they did songs like Big Money. But my all-time favorite Rush record is Moving Pictures, which came out in 1981, a life-changing record for me. 7 tracks. Every one is top-notch. It's got my favorite Rush track, Witch Hunt, on there, which is so fucking heavy. All the hits. I mean, it's their biggest-selling record. I've seen them a ton of times. Thankfully, I think it was 2012 was the year where they played the whole album from start to finish. And it's their masterpiece. I would say, and it's their biggest selling record.
Amazing album. I love it.
Yeah.
That tour was 2011, I think, actually, but
it could be.
I got to see that tour a couple of times. That's awesome stuff.
Yeah, that was a great show.
Great album.
Great choice. If I picked your year, it would have been mine as well. Yeah, that's fantastic. All right, Mr. Skow, back to you for your last pick of 2000.
All right. Well, I am just throwing darts at the board here. So I have a little rule, which is the only bands. This is.
Oh wait, I didn't go. Hold on a second. Hold on.
You skipped you.
I skipped myself. I've done that
before.
Because I said your last one. I'm looking. I still got 2 sitting here. I'm like, holy crap, what did I do? All right, real quick. I don't think we need to talk too much about this one. It's it's not quite my favorite Zeppelin album. Physical Graffiti is my favorite Zeppelin album, but it's a top 3 or 4 for me. And this is what their biggest selling album of all time, right? I mean, this is absolutely legendary. Another great one from 1971.
Every song's a hit.
Every song. Yep, exactly.
The Battle of Evermore.
My favorite.
Evermore. When the levee breaks, man. I still love Black Dog. I never need to hear rock and roll ever again. And Stairway to Heaven, if I hear once or twice a year, that's probably enough. But man, I dig Black Dog a hell of a lot. I still can listen to that anytime.
4 Sticks. Yeah, that's a
4
great
Sticks
album.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Absolutely.
That is a good one.
Yeah.
Due to me being devoid of really listening to any broadcast radio for years, I can listen to all of them and they don't bother me. But if you're stuck in a job or, the radio's playing those same 3 songs over and over again,
yeah, it could beat you up because they like to play rock and roll more than any other Led Zeppelin song. Holy
great
crap.
song.
It is a good song, but yeah, you're right. I think I'm good on that for like forever.
All right. Sorry to interrupt you, Ryan. Back to you.
Okay, so here's my stupid rule. Probably the only one that thinks the stupid thing. The only bands that can wear capes and make it look cool are bands from Italy. I don't know if it's like an old school. I don't know if it's like an old school like Italian, because I love, and you watch this show too with when Pete and Chris go into old horror. I love old Italian horror. Right? It's fucking awesome. And of course, you have old Italian bands like Goblin and stuff that did the soundtrack to all the a lot of Argento, a lot of Fulci movies, and that I think that bled over into metal. And in the 80s, you had some bands that came up, Bulldozer, who were a great Italian thrash band. Like kind of like a Sodom, old Slayer, but they wore fucking capes. I've seen them twice. They wore capes. And then my favorite Italian band by far, little black metal, little heavy metal, Mortuary fucking Drape. Great band.
So good.
They wear capes on stage. The singer has a podium. You know what? It fucking works. It is so cool. And they're pretty obscure. I don't know if any of you guys have heard this band. This is their 2000 album, Tolling 13 Nell. It's like it's old heavy metal, old black metal, but it's not raw. It's not like very like primitive. It's actually quite well produced. It's very memorable, like great bass playing, great guitar riffs, solos, and it has to feel like an old Italian horror, like old Hammer horror. It really like evokes that feel, like church organs, bells. Like I mean, as soon as you listen to it, like, okay, there it is. Like it's just one of those things. It's like self-explanatory. But these guys put out a whole series of great albums, and this one was I wouldn't say it's my favorite album by them, but it's up there, and it's a really, that you can kind of see they're all hiding in this crypt wearing capes and shit. Here's a good picture on the inside too. If you're not from Italy and you're dressed like this, I don't want to talk to you. Like you're not gonna make it work. But they get up on stage dressed like it with these purple robes and stuff, and they kick fucking ass. And there's like no like that's kind of cheesy or silly, like like Monster Mash. No, they sell it 100% and it works. And like I said, if you were from somewhere besides Italy, I don't know why, but yeah, they'd be a little silly. But these guys, amazing band. That is my 5th choice.
Really, really awesome band. I saw them with you, and I'm into them because of Ryan, and he's not kidding, man. They're incredible.
Where did we see them? We saw them at
Vitus.
We saw them in Vitus together. Yeah, to get up there, purple flowing robes and stuff, and it's just like just attack. Great
Very
music
good.
too. But it's it's not raw and silly. Like I actually recommend if you guys are unfamiliar with them, any of the viewers, check them out. You might find something you like.
Like Chris said, I think they would have looked right at home in a Lucio Fulci film, right?
100%. It's like that's where they're pulled out of. It's cool too, and they make it work.
They're still rocking the 1970s with the capes there.
Yeah, you know what? And good for them. They're still kicking ass to this day too.
Yes, used to be pretty famous.
Hey, I was going to say, I don't think anybody rocks a cape like Rick Wakeman.
We're gonna get he's like
Frank Marino used to rock him pretty good too.
Rick Wakeman's a special guy. He can do it.
Yeah.
But as a general rule, I'm still gonna stick with that rule though. As silly as it is.
All right, Steve, your final pick of the day from 1970.
I want to see Skow wear a cape for 2000.
Well, he wants to see you sing. He wants to see you wear a cape.
Will you wear a cape, Skow?
Yeah, hold on.
If we are finally allowed to go to a concert again, I want you to wear a cape to him.
I got a picture for you. You do your thing. I'll find you this picture. I'll make you happy.
It's got to be a Ghost concert.
All right. Number 1 for me, Black Sabbath, Paranoid, 1970. War Pigs starts it off, and one of the classics and one of the best songs ever. And Electric Funeral, of course, Iron Man, Paranoid, all were launched on unsuspecting 1970s listeners. I mean, they got a little taste of the first Sabbath, so whoever dug that was probably just waiting for this. But boy, this was the one that hit radio play with Paranoid.
Yep. First Black Sabbath album I ever bought.
And
here.
That's why I picked 1970. I looked at 71. I've been in a real classic rock mood all through this pandemic. Anyhow, I don't know if I'm touching base with my soul, listening to stuff when I was 10 years old, 11 years old, or whatever. But this stuff, and you look at it, it's just all excellent stuff. And I left off some really good records that I've done work on here too. So
great choice.
Paranoid got me into Black Sabbath. That was the first Sabbath album I heard when I was pretty young. Made a huge impression on me. Fuck yeah.
Hand of Doom.
All right, Nick. What's your final choice from 88?
So, you know what? I'm looking at 3 CDs here that I really want to include. And, I like those bands probably overall better than this one, but I was just thinking what everybody's saying. And it would be remiss for me not to include Metallica and Justice for All. And meaningful because it was their last great album as far as I'm concerned. And, I think most people agree with that, but if not, that's fine. But to me, the personal meaning is that was really the very first, because of my age and where I came into things. And Justice for All was my first album, I think, that that my mom bought me in the store that I really just owned. The Iron Maiden and Judas Priest, and Iron Maiden's my favorite band, but I got into Iron Maiden because of my brother, Priest because of my brother. Metallica was the first band I got into because of me, because I happened to just turn on MTV and, after suffering through all this mindless, Poison, Motley Crue, things like that, that's what they were throwing. That's what I felt like I was getting thrown at me when I was that age. And I was awkward and nerdy and into history and war and misery. And Metallica's and Justice for All, when the one video came out, that's where everything, that was my oh shit moment. Like that's where everything changed for me. It was a black and white video. They looked half dead themselves. And it was all about World War I. So Injustice for All to me was just a monument. My mom bought me the album from Caldor, and I played it until forget. I brought it everywhere. I remember going over like my parents' friend's house, and I'm like forcing their kids to listen to it. Like I couldn't be without it. So I would have to mention 1988. I'd have to mention Injustice for All, their last great album, Metallica, and my launching album, my launch pad into heavy metal.
It's a great album. I still can listen to it and enjoy it.
Yeah, me too.
It is awesome. Oh, and Steve, I found. I don't know if you could see. You probably can't see. There's me wearing a cape. Going.
You were. That's right. We were at the Maiden show, and you had the
was in
cape
Jersey.
on.
Yeah.
So did Nick.
You know what? Here's
I remember Nick had one too. At the Maiden show.
If you can see Nick, there's me and Nick in cape in Brooklyn last one conference.
Yeah, I saw you guys there.
I did wear a cape, Steve. There you go.
We were all waiting in line together. It wasn't like a velvety purple like glitter one.
It was actually just that. I put it around my neck with a piece of string.
Yeah,
you know what? Legally, that counts as a cape, right?
Yeah.
I have the trooper. The trooper. I know. Is it Number of the Beast cape? Number of the Beast. I have. Yeah, that's my cape for Maiden cape.
Instead of fairies wears boots, it's Skow wears capes. That's the new cover.
You're happy. Me and my cape.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, your final pick from 1981.
Final pick.
I think I know what it is.
You know what it is. My all-time favorite record from my all-time favorite band, Black Sabbath, Mob Rules. I don't know what you said. I saw this lineup 18 times, but that's still my number one Time Machine spot if I could go see Sabbath on the Mob Rules tour. But with songs like Mob Rules, Country Girl, Voodoo. Listen, in the future, I'm gonna round up all my friends that saw them on the Mob Rules tour, and like that movie, I'm gonna download your memories into mine, so then it'll be like I was almost there. Because I love that record. I still buy anything I can that says Black Sabbath Mob Rules, T-shirts, posters, whatever the fuck, painter caps. I don't have a full record yet, but I've been looking for one for a while, and that's it. My favorite record of all time is also my number one pick for 1981, Mob Rules.
Sign of the Southern Cross.
I was going to say that. Incredible.
That's my favorite song of all time. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
You have a big collection of Mob Rules merchandise, huh?
Yeah, I got anytime I can get something from 81, 82, I grab it. Any kind of stickers, buttons. I mean, there's not that much out there. We're talking 40 years ago. But she pops up.
Rumor has it that there's going to be a Mob Rules Barbie doll coming out soon. So
what?
Country Girl?
Country Girl. How about the carnival mirror? Do you have that?
I do have one of those. Yep.
Wow, you do.
I have the Mob Rules figure. I got a lot of junk.
They never made a blacklight poster of Mob Rules. That would have been so awesome.
No, they did not. They did not. They should have.
I got a bootleg Black Sabbath poster over there. You can see it. It's like we sold our souls for rock and roll. Can you guys make it out?
No.
All right.
There's a lot of stuff going on there.
A lot
it's
of
a whole bunch of colors.
A lot of black light.
And I'm colorblind.
A lot of black lights.
Yeah, it's too many colors, Steve.
Too many colors. Okay.
There's a lot going on there.
Too groovy for you.
It looks cool though. What it is, I don't know, but it looks cool.
Okay. Well,
all right.
Final. Be able to check it out on there when they're watching on YouTube.
There you go. All right, the final choice today from 1971. I could have picked the Yes album. I could have picked Fireball by Deep Purple. I could have picked Look at Yourself by Uriah Heep. Of course, I'm trying to squeeze in some honorable mentions there. But, it's got to be Master Reality, right? Because, one of my favorite albums from the band, one of my favorite albums from this year, an incredible year, 1971. Their first album is fantastic, legendary. Paranoid, like Steve was just talking about, legendary. This probably their heaviest album up until that point, I would think. After Forever, Sweetly, Children of the Grave, Into the Void, Lord of this World. I mean, it's the birth of stoner metal right here, perhaps. I don't know. could be. Ozzy
Oh, for
and
sure.
Tony and Geezer and Bill just absolutely killing it on here. Love it. So yeah, that's my final choice for 1971. So,
I'll tell you real quick. I heard a great Black Sabbath joke. I don't know if you guys ever heard this joke. So when you die and you go to hell, you walk into hell and Satan tells you, so the house band is Black Sabbath. And you're like, fuck yeah, Black Sabbath. But then he says, but it's only the instrumentals.
Because it's hell.
sorry, all you get is Embryo and Orchid. That's it. Done.
And, yeah, just like those little shitty 40, 50-second ditties that suck. Or, don't suck, but are like kind of like whatever.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, could you imagine what it must have felt like in 1971 to hear "Children of the Grave" for the first time?
It's like
In 1971.
It's so freaking heavy.
Like,
It still is heavy.
that's got to be one of the first songs like that ever written, right?
Oh, that chugging
Just-
guitar. Yeah.
Fucking hell, yeah. Because in 2020, you can turn that on loud and get the same feeling. I mean, wow.
Electric Funeral's pretty up there too in my book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just that beginning.
Well, it's not that driving, but I know what you mean.
Ooh.
That's just such a heavy.
Some serious business.
So Pete, I am shocked that ELP Tarkus wasn't in your top 5.
It was like I said, my list could have been like
I kind
30.
of I didn't have Mass Reality jotted down, and I was like, it's got to be Tarkus as number 1.
Yeah, it like I said, it would have been. It's on my longer list. I got
Yeah.
I got that on my longer list. I've got Grand Funk Railroad, Pluribus Funk. I've got Pink Floyd Metal. ZZ Top's first album.
Oh yeah.
Right, Brian? I mean, Jesus, there's just so many. It's a crazy year.
So can I give a couple honorable mentions?
Go ahead.
Nope.
Oh, it's 72.
Or
Right?
out of turn to Skow. Want to give a couple first, or
Go right ahead,
Me?
Steve.
you
me?
mentioned-
So
oh,
Jethro Tull, Benefit.
I love that album. Yep, my favorite. Jeff.
Santana, Abraxas. I don't know how that's not in the top 5. I mean, you can know it for Black Magic Woman, but you love it for like Incident at Nesabar and Secabo. I can pronounce it good.
Seat Cabo.
Say Cabo. Yes, there we go.
Cabo.
Grateful Dead, American Beauty, and Workman's Dead both came out that year. Who live at Leeds.
Oh, yeah.
Doors absolutely live. And you know what? 1970 was the first year I ever bought a record. I had 45s before that. My first album ever. No one's gonna think I'm a middle of Jackson 5 ABC. Remember going to play store and having this is my first album. It's got more than 2 songs on it.
You know what, Steve?
What's that?
First album I ever owned when I was a young kid was Thriller by Michael Jackson. Look at that.
Wow, we got something in common almost. And then I picked up the Temptations Greatest Hits, and the Temptations Greatest Hits outshadowed the Jackson 5 by that much. I listened to that every morning before school whenever year that, when I was like 10th grade.
Steve, getting ready.
No, it wasn't even the Get Ready song. It was like Psychedelic Shack, Ball of Confusion. Like they were heavy then. They got some heavy stuff.
Ball of Confusion's a great song. Hell yeah.
Ball of Confusion, Psychedelic Shack. Yeah, there's some really good. They had some really like where they were kind of going to the hard rock and singing about like hippie stuff. Cloud 9, and they got really heavy.
Guardian over there.
All right, so I guess that pretty much wraps up my story. I mean, there was Steppenwolf Live came out that year, King Crimson, Pink Floyd, Adam Hart, Mother. I almost forgot that. That's one of my insomnia go-tos. If I can't sleep, if I put that record on, I'm asleep about halfway through. It's just so relaxing. And anyhow, that's done. I'm done.
You're
I got
done.
one honorable mention. There's
Yep,
one
go
honorable
for it.
mention from 2000. It's
Yep.
Death Race
Masterpiece.
King by The Crown.
That's
Amazing record.
This sounds like classic Fast Eddie, filthy Lemmy Motorhead playing death metal with like Rain and Blood like blasted in there somehow. Like this is actually probably my favorite Jim album ever because this is I don't know how much it's like 10,000 cups of coffee crammed into this album.
It's excellent.
So good.
Yeah, I saw them on that tour with I saw them do a headline show with Chrissian on that tour in front of about 30 people. I actually videotaped the show.
Was it at Obsessions?
Obsessions in Randolph. Yep.
I did not see that, but I saw them. Not on the tour, unfortunately. This is my favorite album by them, though. It's first
amazing
album. It is
I like that.
insane. It's,
Fucking awesome.
Blitzkrieg Witchcraft and Total Satan are like the best like
Amazing.
songs ever. It's just get hit in the face like repeatedly, like with like a fucking machine gun or something. I don't even know. It's that good. But that's all I got.
I got Blind Guardian, Battalions of Fear, Blind Guardian's first album, 1988, the start of this wonderful career. That's the speedy, like power metal thrash. And Halloween, talking about epics with really long, proggy type songs. Keeper of the Seven Keys Part 2 was 1988. What a year. And not as great as the ones that came before, but I think South of Heaven from Slayer should get some love. That's a great album. I still listen.
Very dark album. It's a very dark album.
Very dark, yeah.
Get plenty of love from me.
Yeah, really, really good. And also, I have to say, Delicate Sound of Thunder is not. That was not. I mean, I don't know. Are we doing live albums? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Delicate Sound of Thunder was one hell of a live album, 1988. That came out, Pink Floyd.
Yep.
Chris, you got one or two you want to throw out there?
From 1981? Yeah, my favorite Van Halen record, Fair Warning. Man, I just, I love that record. That's from top to bottom, man. It's just a fucking amazing record. I probably don't have it anymore. I had the 8-track. So, just drive my dad's car and just listen to that and Moving Pictures on 8-track over and over again. That would be that, and the other one really from 81. I'm not the biggest AC/DC fan, but man, For Those About to Rock, that was the first AC/DC record that I got. That's a great record. I think it just got overshadowed by Back in Black, even to this day. But man, that's a killer fucking record.
It is.
Definitely.
It is a good album.
I saw that tour, and they had the Cannon, and it was just great stuff. It was them and Yngwie Malmsteen.
In 81?
No, I thought it was them. You know what? I didn't see that tour. I saw them probably a couple years later, and they did the For Those About to Rock at the end, and it was just.
I think Yngwie opened up on Flick of the Switch tour.
But yeah.
I saw that tour. I didn't see that tour.
No, I didn't see that exactly tour, but when I saw them, it was, I don't know what, maybe it was, what was the album after that?
They did the Cannon thing, like every tour after that.
After that, they were doing that pretty much every year. But
which was a very cool gimmick.
It was soon after, though. It was probably the next tour or something.
I was gonna say when 81. I was like, I don't even think Yngwie left Sweden in 81.
It wasn't. It had to be by like 85, whatever the 85 was.
Gotcha, yeah.
It was the only time I actually saw AC/DC till later on.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there we have it, everybody. All of our favorite years. So we looked at 2000, 1970, 1971, 1988, and 1981. All some great years in music. And you got a bunch of picks from all of us as our favorites from those years. So if you guys love this, maybe we'll do another round of this over the next couple of weeks. And let us know in the comments and feedback below. I'm sure we're going to get lots of them. So, and of course, Ryan, you got to make sure you're reading all the comments, because let's see if there's anybody out there who is going to admit that they actually know
get that free beer.
Yeah, if you know this, I'm going to buy you a beer. If you have a copy, I will buy you a beer. Guaranteed.
Well, if you know Black Sabbath, will you buy us a beer then?
No.
Oh,
That'd be a lot of beer. That's a lot of beer.
Yeah, that's a lot of beer.
That's a lot of beer, Steve. Sorry.
I forgot Jimi Hendrix Band of Gypsies on my list too, and that year it was another heavy hitter. But anyhow, that was a fun show. I really enjoyed it.
This was a lot of fun. So everybody make sure you go visit us on the web, www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. Make sure you visit rockfantasy.com. And if you're visiting the Hudson Valley area, please stop in at Steve's store in Middletown, New York, and check it out. He's got so much cool shit there. You've never seen a store like this before. Ever.
Nick goes there almost every week now. He's a great guy.
There you go.
I didn't mention him last week. He took the pictures up and sent me. Look, and I was there too, not just Skow.
I was there with him.
Get Chris Allen to come over. Right?
Maybe I got to get there. It's on my list.
Well, Chris, you can come with me, but the thing is, if you come with me, Steve will never be there. So,
I'm hardly ever there, but I like to come visit.
All right, everyone. So for Nick, Franco, Ryan, Skow, Steve Keeler, and Chris Allo, I am Pete Pardo. We'll see you all next Monday night, everybody. Take care.
Good night.